what's up, everyone? Sam Shah here, founder of Wall Street Mastermind. I'm back today with another client interview for you guys. Today, I'm excited to be on with Heejune, who's one of our students that just finished going through the summer 2022 recruiting process. And I'm excited to get him on here to talk to you about just his recruiting experience and how it went for him, and hopefully share some insight for you guys that will, help you with your own process as well. So. Heejune, thank you for taking the time to be on here to talk to us today, especially I know right now is midterm season, so you're pretty busy. But
yeah.
To start things off, maybe you can introduce yourself real quick so people kind of just get a sense for who you are and what your profile is.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for having me, Sam. So nice to meet everyone. My name is Heejune. I'm currently a junior at UC Berkeley studying economics. I guess just to give you more background information, I actually started my undergraduate studies at UCR as a computer science major. Quickly realized that wasn't, my thing. So tried to just kind of pivot industries, and I found investment banking pretty attractive as a career prospect. So I decided to transfer to UC Berkeley and did so successfully and kind of got my start from there. But yeah, that's a little bit about myself.
Okay, so you're a transfer student, which is interesting. So what year did you transfer? Like you came into Berkeley as a sophomore or?
Yeah, so the interesting thing is for UC transfers, you have to come in as a junior. And I know I introduced myself as a junior, but I just said that for simplicity because I am going to be delaying graduation. So originally I should be a senior credit wise and years wise, but I'm going to be delaying graduation. Yeah.
Got it. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So I mean, we've worked with other, usually like a lot of transfer students come from like community college, and it's the same thing where they transfer in their third year. But as a lot of our listeners probably know, if your goal is to recruit for investment banking, coming in as a junior is really late in the process, right? Nowadays, a lot of banks, especially if you want to get into, say, like a middle market or even bulge bracket elite boutique bank, a lot of them start recruiting like halfway through sophomore year. So by the time you come in as a junior and you get settled and you realize that banking is something you want to do, now maybe you're halfway through junior year and all those banks are done recruiting already, right? So that's what Heejune's kind of talking about in terms of delaying graduation, kind of buys you more time and resets the clock. So it's as if you're transferring in as a sophomore. So hopefully that all makes sense for everyone. So I guess let's go back to the beginning. Like, when did you realize that investment banking was something you want to pursue? Because you started out, like you said, as a computer science major. So did you realize you want to do banking like freshman year, or sorry, your first 2 years at UCR, or was it only after you transferred to Berkeley?
Yeah, it was when I actually decided to change my majors, right? I just found that computer science wasn't for me. I didn't really enjoy studying. And I took an introductory economics class and I found it very fun. I really loved going to all the lectures. My professor was really good too. So I think that led to me changing my major to econ / like business administration. And then once I started looking into different careers I could go into that was related to my major, I found out about investment banking, consulting, accounting, and investment banking just caught my eyes because like it sounds sexy, right? Like high finance, you make a lot of money, you work like a dog, you grind. So it was kind of like a challenge for me as well. So
got it. Okay. So then you transferred to Berkeley, like you said, like after 2 years at UC Riverside, right? When did you actually start like preparing for investment banking recruiting? Like, was that prior to you joining Wall Street Mastermind, or did you kind of join Wall Street Mastermind from the get-go as soon as you knew you were ready to start preparing, or like, did you do anything on your own before working with us, I guess?
And I think this will be helpful for people looking to transfer. But like Sam said, if you transfer in as a junior, like you almost have zero chance. Like you need to, build up your resume network and, prepare for interviews, technicals, behaviorals, or whatnot. And you just simply don't have the time to unless you start, preparing in your freshman year or like even early sophomore year. But for a lot of transfers, if you're looking to transfer, you're already busy trying to get that 4.0, like try to meet all the prereqs. So it's almost impossible to kind of do those two at the same time and try to have like a successful outcome. Some people might, and some people just might, lack the information too and the resources as well. So I guess just to answer Sam's question, I was one of those people. I was just solely focused on transferring to UC Berkeley, and I didn't even realize like recruiting was that early. Or I somewhat knew, but I was like, it should work out, right? That was just kind of at the back of my head. So I focused on just transferring. And once I got to UC Berkeley, I was like, okay, I have 2-3 years here. Let's make the best use out of it. And then I started looking into like investment banking, recruiting. I was on Wall Street Oasis, mergers, inquisitions, but I wasn't getting too far because there was just too like recruiting. There's just so many different aspects. And it like all those aspects comes with these little intricacies, right? Like just to give you an example, like networking, right? Okay, that sounds easy, but like networking timeline, cold email templates, what you should say during those calls, like what type of questions should you be asking, how would you get referrals from those bankers? Like, so there's just too many little intricacies that, I just couldn't consolidate basically all the information in time. So it was pretty tough.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
So it sounds like you kind of started like preparing for banking recruiting in earnest after you arrived at Berkeley, because prior to that you were just fully occupied with getting the best grades and hitting the requirements to be able to transfer schools. And then once you started looking into it, the first thing you did is kind of this, probably the first thing that everyone out there does, is like go on Wall Street Oasis and positions, and it's a ton of information on both of those websites. But sometimes like there is such a thing as having too much information, especially when everything is kind of scattered and like you just don't know what's what, basically. Okay.
Yeah.
Understood. So I know that you decide. Sorry, were you gonna say something?
No.
Okay. And so I know that and you transferred to Berkeley when? Was it August of 2020?
Yeah, so I mean, I got my admission letter like April of basically 2020, and and then COVID hit, right? So like that was another like different story. I think it was a blessing in disguise for me in my situation, but that kind of like changed everything, like with online school and like just transitioning between all that. But basically I started I actually started summer class at Berkeley that summer. So summer of 2020, that's when I started.
Okay. So you started summer class at Berkeley that summer of 2020. And then I know you joined Wall Street National, it was like
July.
Yeah, it was like mid-August. Mid-August, at least, because I write all this stuff down. Mid-August of 2020, so it was like basically the start of your first school year.
Yeah.
Right. I guess you kind of maybe already alluded to this a little bit earlier, but like, why make the decision to join something like Wall Street Mastermind? Because I think a lot of people always ask this question is like, what's the difference? Like whatever I do with Wall Street Mastermind, I'll probably just do on my own, right? Like what was your mindset when you were like making this decision coming in? And like, I'm sure you did your research, like, were you skeptical at all? If you were, like, why did you join anyways? Like, can you just kind of talk about your mentality at the time?
Yeah, definitely. So I guess just to first answer that, I'm just a type of person who plans very carefully before, I do anything. I think planning and execution is very important, right? And I think I do both of those pretty well. So the first thing I did when I realized that, I was getting nowhere just reading articles and Wall Street Oasis forums where, I won't lie, I didn't like actively look into like career coaching or anything, but Sam was everywhere on YouTube, on LinkedIn, on Wall Street. If you ever Google investment banking on your device, you're gonna see him. Like his ads are gonna pop up. So it was interesting. Yeah, I watched some promotional videos. I know Sam did some Reddit AMAs, and I looked into Sam's background, and they all seem solid, right? There's obviously a lot of or criticism out there for Sam's programs,
Yeah.
and I did look into those as well, but I was able to assess, is this program right for me? Will it help? Because I think everyone is in a different situation, right? Because this program doesn't work 100% for everyone, but
Right.
at that time for me, it was a perfect program for me because it had all the information that I needed, just kind of in one, like that Kajabi modules that Sam has, so
Yeah.
I could just go through them. And I think what definitely helped was just kind of getting on the strategy call with Sam and just kind of hearing his insights and his plans, his strategies. And also what definitely helped me convince, oh, this isn't like a scam, was getting on a call with, some of the clients. I got on a call with, I believe, Noah Kimura. And he was able to tell me a lot of different things. Like he was able to give me his like honest insights, right? And he's not benefiting from like me joining or anything. So he gave me all the pros and cons. So after that, I was able to kind of just say, why not, right? I work pretty hard. I'm at UC Berkeley. I got to make, use out of this like school brand, right? And conveniently, I had, a decent amount of disposable income that I had saved up to use it for a vacation, but because of COVID, it was going nowhere. So I was just like, why not?
Yeah. Okay.
That was my thought process.
Yeah. There's some stuff that I want to unpack there, right? So first thing is, you mentioned like there's a lot of criticism online for our program, and there's no, I'm very open about that too, because it's all out there. Everyone can go and see it, right? I've responded to some of it. I think most people, because you said something like, hey, I was able to, obviously you saw the criticism, but you were able to assess whether this program is right for you or not, right? I think that you made that sound a lot easier than it actually is, because I put myself in the shoes of students who are considering this program. And I think that like when you're from the outside looking in and you haven't been in the program and you're reading all this stuff online, regardless of whether these people have actually been in the program or not, who they are, I mean, you just don't really know because everyone's anonymous, right? But that can be scary and that can be intimidating, especially for someone like you who's sure you saved up money for a vacation. Sure, there was COVID and you can't go on the vacation anymore, but still, it probably took you a good amount of time to save up that money. It wasn't like you were just throwing it around like, oh, I don't care if like this money goes to waste, right? So this assessment process that you're talking about, yes, like talking to Noah, I'm sure that helped, right? But like, what are you looking for, and what, I guess, like what allowed you to kind of like tune out? Because right now we're sitting here, hindsight's 2020. Of course, you got an offer, and I'm sure you're happy with the decision to join this program. But at the time where the future is unknown, what really allowed you to just like take that leap of faith and tune out all the noise that you're supposedly reading, like, oh, this must be a scam or blah, 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 blah. Because there are, let's be honest, there are a lot of programs online that either are scams or maybe they're not scams, but like they don't deliver on what they say they're going to do, right? And that's why people are so skeptical in general, right? So like, how did you overcome that?
Yeah, I think it comes down to two things. So first, just being able to just logically think about things, right? Because when you're looking into this program, Wall Street Mastermind, there's Reddit, there's Wall Street Oasis. I think those are like the two main forums I looked at, right? And I saw the criticisms and I saw the positive reviews as well. And they weren't really contradicting each other, right? I felt like I would have been very confused if both sides are talking about totally different things. But the criticism was, Sam charges too much money, which is out there for free, right? And I think I do agree on that part, but not mostly, because there definitely are some parts of the program that isn't out there for free. Like there's some parts that kind of changed my life, like the insights are really good. But the positive reviews are, they were telling me, right, or they were listing out the things that you'll be getting from the program. And when you kind of look at that side by side, none of the informations were really contradicting each other. They weren't saying, this isn't true. There was no there weren't that many false information out there. So I was able to clearly just assess, what I'll be getting out of this program, like pretty easily, I think. And the second part has to just do with like, I guess, believing in myself, believing that I'll be able to invest money into this and make good use out of it. Right. And that comes like internally. So
right. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. It's like, because you're right. A lot of times I think whether you think the program is expensive or not, a lot of it comes down to your belief in whether you're going to get the outcome you're looking for with the help of the program, right? Because obviously, if you believed, hey, I'm going to get into banking with an investment into this program, of course, along with your hard work, right? Like it's not going to be handed to you. But if you believe that that's going to be the outcome, then honestly, in the grand scheme of things, it's a very small investment when we're talking about the benefit that you're gonna reap for basically the rest of your career, right? Versus if you're not confident that, hey, even if I had this help, I'm gonna be able to get this job, then in your mind you're probably thinking like, ooh, like this might be a waste of money, right? So I think like that second part, absolutely, it's like, yes, you need to have confidence in our program, but also how much confidence do you have in yourself that you're the type of person who's going to be able to make something out of this? Like if you come in and you don't do the work, or you're not, I mean, let's be honest, right? Like even you being in this program, was the investment banking recruiting process easy? Like, would you say it was easy? No, it's it's not going to be easy no matter what, right?
It's not easy.
And so like, I think some people get the wrong idea where they say like, oh, so like as long as I pay for this program, then I'm entitled to this job. Like, no, like if it was that, then like
then you could charge like a premium.
Right. And then I would charge a lot more, but also like we're not doing anything illegal here where we're like buying your way into these banks or something. Like this is not the college admissions scandal. There's no like side door or back door that you can go through. It's like you got to earn it, right? And so I think like knowing yourself well enough, knowing whether you are the type of person who's still going to put in the work, and all you need is like a little bit of guidance to make sure that the work you're putting in is the right work. I think that's critically important. And we would advise people not to do our program if they're not willing to put in the work, right? And then the first part, I think, like you said, like really, I think what, like if I were to summarize what you said on that first point in terms of like thinking logically about both the criticisms and the positive reviews and seeing if there's any contradictions. And you're right, there's not really any contradiction. The most of the criticism is that, oh, it's too expensive, right? But I think like being able to think critically for yourself as opposed to having other people think for you, like having other people form opinions for you and then just taking that at face value, I think that is a skill set that's very, very, I guess, undervalued. Like people don't think about it that much. Like I think a lot of people just read whatever they read online and then they just take it at face value, right? But like in this day and age, I mean, we all know about fake news. We all know like anyone can say anything they want. And more and more nowadays, we live in an age where we have to be able to look at the evidence that's in front of us and decipher it and come to our own conclusions, right? And I feel like that's kind of what you did. And again, I'm not saying everyone should come to the same conclusion. Some people might look at the evidence and come to the conclusion that, hey, based on what Wall Street Mastermind says it's going to provide, that is not what I'm looking for. And that's totally okay, right? Because like this program is not for everyone. In fact, we don't work with everyone either. Like sometimes we talk to students and we're like, we're not confident we can get you into banking and we actually don't want you in the program, right? Because like we're not just in the business of like taking people's money and then not delivering. That doesn't make us feel good either. And it doesn't make us look good either, right? But I think that's really helpful to just like, I think everyone should really evaluate the evidence, decide for themselves, like do your homework, talk to people that have already been in the program. And like, I don't know how you got connected with Noah. I don't remember if we connected you or not, but like for people who are truly evaluating our program, it's like, if you want to talk to someone who's already gone through the program, like we're happy to even introduce people to you so you can talk to them, like, cause we got nothing to hide, right? And so that's really helpful. So then like, let's talk a little bit about, okay, you came into the program, you spent your vacation money on this. What did you do inside of the program? Because obviously like you joined, August 2020, and you probably, if I do the math, it's about a 13 to 14 month journey that you've been on since that time, right?
Yeah.
Can you kind of walk us through what's been happening for you over the last 13 to 14 months? And we already alluded to this earlier, it was not easy by any means, but like, what did you do inside of the program, and how is it different from what you could have done on your own? Like, had you just continued down the path you were on before Wall Street Mastermind? Because I think the question that people always ask is like, okay, fine, like what Wall Street Mastermind helps you, but like, what's the difference? Why can't I just do this on my own? Why can't I just Google everything like all the critics say I should be able to, right? Like what's the big deal, I guess?
Yeah. So I guess the main difference between, I'll start with this, main difference between Wall Street Mastermind versus maybe like the $200 program for breaking into Wall Street is, Wall Street Mastermind kind of takes you from like the very beginning process, like stages, right? I literally I didn't even have a resume. Like I didn't have any relevant finance experience. Like all this recruiting, like jargon, like it just did not make sense to me. Like networking, like isn't that what like rich people do, right? Like none of it really made any sense to me. So it was a very like it opened me it opened my eyes to like the new world when I kind of got onto the modules and just went through like the application section first, right? It's like, this is how you structure, format your resume. This is how you write your cover letters. This is how you do LinkedIn. And I was like, wow, this is good. This is professional. And, I made full use out of it. Like I hopped onto the program, like right after I bought it. And I went through the application module, like I think like the first or second week. And I just kind of got everything down. And then from there, right? I think this is like I think this part is more important or even like harder of a grind. But before obviously recruiting season is very tough, but just preparing for recruitment is very tough as well, right? You have to, land, like nowadays it's so competitive. You have to land, your regional boutique investment banking internships. You have to land, like some any internships that are relevant for finance or something that's like a good brand name, right? And I just did not know where to start. And I think Sam has like this module where he kind of walks you through like how to find your first finance relevant internship. Like that was amazing. I was like, wow, I got an internship 2 weeks into the program. This shit works. So I went through that, kind of just got that on my resume. So this is like a month into the program. So a month into the program, I had my LinkedIn cover letter, my resume, and an internship down, right? So huge progress, I think, especially for me, because I do come from a background where, high finance, like no one knows about it. Like my parents still don't exactly understand what I do, nor does my friends like back home. Like, they're just not exposed to this. So I guess for someone who's never been familiar with this type of, environment, I felt like Wall Street Mastermind just, helped me catch up to speed, like the first like the first 2 years that I missed out on college, like that I could have been working on internships or resumes, like it just helped me kind of get my shit together down in 1 month. Like that's how fast it took. And as soon as I landed that search fund internship, 2-3 weeks in, I started recruiting for my next internship, right? I started sending cold emails, like I had like a list of like 200 boutique investment banks, regional boutique banks that I was targeting. And, very fortunately by like my 40th email, I got in contact with like a Cal alumni and I was able to land an internship at a boutique firm named Montminy and Co. And that's in LA. So this is like where, the COVID kind of thing in a disguise kind of comes in, right? If the internship was actually in person, I wouldn't have been able to do it. But since it was all remote, I was able to just kind of do that during the school year. And I basically, Sam, did I cut out?
Oh no, you're still here. Your video froze up a little bit, but we could still hear you though. So
Internet's kind of bad.
Can you hear us?
Sorry about that.
No worries. Can you hear me okay? Uh-oh. Heejune? Looks like we lost him for a second. Let's wait for Heejune to come back.
I do.
Okay, so
Yes.
we had a little bit of a technical difficulty, but with the Wi-Fi, but Heejun is back. So you were saying you got this boutique internship in LA, and then COVID happened, which actually was a blessing in disguise because it allowed you to, I guess, work remotely.
Yeah. So because we were in a pandemic, like all these internships, they were recruiting for remote interns, and that kind of makes it easier for us, right? Because we save a decent amount of time from commuting, right? And when it's kind of remote, sometimes we're forgotten about. So we do some work, but we're not work too much. So that was definitely like very good for me because I had more time to kind of focus on academics because I needed a good GPA as well to go into recruiting.
Right.
And basically that's how my first 2 semesters went, right? At Berkeley. I got used to the school pretty well. I think the online transition made it actually a bit easier. I was changing majors from like CS to economics at UC Berkeley, and I
Yeah.
think the course rigor actually, stayed the same or went down just because of the subject matter. So didn't have too much problem, getting the GPA and whatnot. But that's how I spent my first 2 semesters. So spring semesters comes and this is when I started the boutique internship, right? And that's when I started like actually, like just reviewing all the behavioral modules, networking modules, and technical modules, right? I had already done that, I kind of glimpsed over it and got like a good idea, but that's when I started working on my behavioral answers, really studying for technicals and started networking. I think I think my behaviorals and my networking were kind of on point. Like I think was really good, but technicals, I felt like I kind of started too late. So I kind of had to forego a lot of opportunities that were in like March, April. Like I didn't really start studying for technicals until like February, March, and that's kind of on me. So that's like something that I'll do differently, right? But at the same time, I was just getting used to all this thing and I just couldn't handle everything. Like, I just couldn't, I guess, manage time efficiently. But I have some regrets, but I can't go back to time and change it. But I did start, my technicals did start like slowly getting better. And like, by like May, June, like all the interviews I went, like technicals weren't really like my problem to getting the offer, right? You know, so I think for me, it did take me a bit while compared to my other peers to land the summer analyst offer. And I think it came down to really, just me foregoing a lot of opportunities because I chickened out, right? I was like, I'm not technically ready. I want to go over this more thoroughly. Or I would go into an interview and I just wouldn't be as prepared, right? So I would say I wasn't like 100% like fully prepared until maybe May, June. And that's when a lot of banks kind of wrap up and a lot of banks start again like end of June, I think early July, right? So like that end of May and like June is like a weird time when I noticed there weren't that many banks recruiting. And what made it harder for me was I actually interned at another middle market bank named Alantra. So past summer. And I was working around the clock. I was working, minimum like 55, 60, maximum 70 hours. And that's nothing compared to real like full-time analyst hours, but for someone who who's never done that in their lives before, it's pretty tough. And it was very hard to recruit while doing the internship as well. So I couldn't really recruit all summer, right? It was hard to network. It was hard to get like take the interviews like while I was working because it was in person as well. So I was like, what am I gonna do? And then the internship ended, but by August, there were some, firms that were still recruiting, and I did make some connections while I was interviewing at Cowen Healthcare or Cowen's healthcare group, and they really liked me, but they couldn't give me the offer because like I didn't have any like healthcare background. So they connected me to the M&A team, and um that's when like they started recruiting, right? But I did land like an offer like 2-3 weeks before the interview started. at Cambridge Associates, which is like an asset management firm, investment management firm. And like I reached out to them. I was like, hey guys, do you remember me? The healthcare guys recommended me. So they were like, oh, hey, we're gonna start our process soon. And I was like, oh, I have an offer exploding soon. Can we accelerate it? And they were like, happy to do so. And yeah, and then basically here we are, right? 1 week later, I got the offer, and I'm happy. I think they're pretty happy to have me. I'm super excited to join them. But yeah,
that's awesome. I mean, that's quite the journey, which honestly, like, I think if you were to ask most people about their recruiting journey, it usually is quite the story, because there's like a lot of ups and downs, and you get some wins and you're like on top of the world, and you get some like rejections, or you're too busy, or you're overwhelmed, you can't do the work, and then you have to get back up and get back into it. And like, just, I feel like a lot of times it's just a war of attrition, where if you're still standing at the, it's like, I just finished watching Squid Game, right? Like, if you're still standing at the end of the game, then you win, right? And a lot of people, they just like fall off along the way. But no, I mean, even beyond that though, it's like, it's also like knowing what to do, because I think like the one consistent theme from hearing you talk about is just like, you're so busy along the way. There's so many things that you're having to juggle. You're trying to keep your grades up as a transfer student. You're trying to do all these internships and build up your resume literally from scratch, right? From like getting your first search on internship to then eventually doing a summer internship in banking and working like up to 70 hours a week, to networking, to doing the behaviorals and doing the technicals. And I think like a lot of times people don't realize just how much work it is. It's like you said earlier, I really like one thing you said, which is like, hey, recruiting is hard, but like preparing for recruiting is really hard too, because there's like so much stuff you have to do. And it's a matter of like, how do I fit everything into the 24 hours that I have in a day? And then the banks don't do you any favors, because they keep recruiting earlier and earlier. And so you don't have as much runway to like really get up to speed, right? So I think like where Wall Street Mastermind comes in is really like, I don't know, like if we pretend you're like running a race, or you're driving F1 or whatever, and this is like pushing the NOS button that like helps you accelerate the process. Not that you still don't have to be a good driver or whatever, but like when you have no time to waste, as opposed to like doing a bunch of trial and error and trying to piece everything together and consolidate all the information, and even just knowing the right questions to ask. Like sometimes you don't know what questions to ask, versus having like a proven system or process in front of you that you can just like take the game plan, go out, execute it. Anytime you have questions, you have like a go-to, like one go-to source of truth that you can just go get the answer you need and keep going, right? Especially for you, like, I mean, I know this because I went to Cal. You as a transfer student at a school like Cal, and we've had conversations about this in private before. It's like, where do all the kids from that get into banking from Cal, like where are they from? They're all from like probably a handful of clubs on campus. Right? As a transfer student though, a lot of times you don't have access to those clubs, because they only accept like freshmen and sophomores. Right? So by the time you get to Berkeley, even if you wanted to join those clubs and you wanted to leverage that network or leverage those resources, it's actually like you can't.
It's it's almost impossible.
It's almost impossible. And so it's interesting, because I actually looked at the data on this because I was curious. Cal is like our #1 school in terms of like the students that come into our program. Like Cal has the highest number. Probably not a coincidence since I went to Cal, but like when I look at who's actually joining from Cal, like most of them are not in Haas, like they're not in the business school, and most of them do not belong to one of these elite feeder clubs or whatever. Right. And so it's almost like Wall Street Mastermind is that like club resource for you, because we have our own community in here where everybody helps each other out. And all we're doing is like leveling the playing field for you a little bit against maybe these other kids that got a head start. Right. And I think that's important. You know, that's just how competitive it is nowadays. Right. So I know like we only have a few minutes left. I guess before we go though, I want to ask you one last question, which is, do you have like one piece of advice, maybe something that someone else passed on to you during the recruiting process that just really helped you out a lot? Or is it like once you heard this, it's like, oh wow, and then like, is there something like that that you want to kind of pass on to other people because you were in their shoes not too long ago? Like maybe it's a transfer student who wants to get into banking or whatever. It doesn't matter. Like anything that like that you want to kind of give to our listeners.
Yeah. I guess I could provide, two pieces of advice real quick, maybe for my fellow transfer students out there. It's going to be very realistic, but, really understand what you're getting into, right? This isn't a joke. You don't have too much time. If you do join the program, I feel like Sam said, the playing field does get a bit more even, right? Because you have all the resources and stuff. You're still not gonna like have some like the network that some Cal clubs provides or some clubs at your school provides, but you'll have enough resources to 100% recruit for banking. But please understand what you're getting yourself into. Understand that you're not gonna be sleeping that well for maybe like a year. You're gonna be constantly stressed. You're gonna be constantly working. You're gonna be constantly worried. But at the end, it's gonna pay off once you get the offer. It feels really good. And second tip of advice, second tip, during the recruiting cycle, when you're going into interviews, this is something that's kind of overlooked, but ask really good questions. And like know what type of questions to ask to like different levels of bankers, right? You could ask a pretty generic question to analysts. I think maybe responsibilities of summer analysts, right? But you don't want to be asking that type of question to an MD at the end of an interview, right? So just to give you an example, if the MD is heading like a new group or like he's basically expanding upon like a new group in like already in an established like firm, right? Maybe ask him what are some of like the obstacles that he faced, or maybe look into some of the deals that he's worked on and try to like find interesting like parts and point that out and ask for his opinion or his thought process while he was working on the deal. So a bit more insightful questions, and if it's a good question when the banker says, oh wow, that's a good question, because they do that often. So you want to hear those a lot.
Yeah.
So.
That's, first of all, really honest, raw advice, especially that first piece, which is just like, it's not all rainbows and butterflies. It's not like, hey, join Wall Street Mastermind and like, this is going to be a walk in the park. It's going to be hard, right? Yeah, but like I always tell people, we can't make investment banking recruiting easy for you. We can only make it simple as in like, what you need to do. Now you just gotta go and do it, right? And there's no like second guessing yourself or whatever. And so that's like just keeping it 100% real. And then I think like that second piece of advice is really good too, which is like the art of asking good questions. And obviously we have trainings on that in the modules as well. And to your point, like you got to ask different questions to different people. I think a lot of times people just have like the same list of 10 canned questions that they ask on every single networking call. And it's like, that's a recipe for failure, right? Because you're talking to different people, right? And so I think that's really, really good advice. I know you got to run soon. So I guess I'll just wrap it up by saying this, guys. If you're still listening to this, if you are in a similar spot, maybe you're a transfer student, or even if you're not a transfer student, you're just late to the game. You just got caught off guard by how early recruiting starts. And you realize as a junior or even as a senior, like, oh, I want to get into banking. Like a lot of the recruiting timeline has already passed. Reach out to us. We still might be able to help you. I don't want to say we for sure will be able to help you because I don't know that. We might be able to help you. It depends on if you are the right type of person. Like Heejune said, this program is not for everyone, right? But you can reach out. You can actually speak to a successful alumni who's already gone through our program and has already like done what you're trying to do. And just like we call it a virtual coffee chat, where you just like, it's like a networking call. You do it for free. You talk to them, get their recruiting advice. You can ask them about Ocean Management if you want. After that, if you still want to talk to our team, they can introduce you to our team, and we're happy to talk to you and see if we're a good fit to help you. And if we're not a good fit to help you, then at a minimum, you just got some free recruiting advice, got some free networking in, and you have nothing to lose, right? So if that's something that you're interested in, you can go to www.wallstreetmastermind.com/apply. It's the streets abbreviated to ST, so wall, stmastermind.com/apply. And we look forward to talking to you, okay? And hopefully just helping you make this process a bit simpler, okay? Again, we're not here to make it easy, but we're here to make it a bit simpler, okay? So guys, that'll be it for today. Heejune, I want to congratulate you again on a really, really great outcome, getting into the Cowen M&A group. And thank you for taking the time to just share your experience with everyone today. And thank you for keeping it 100% real, right? And I really appreciate that. And let's stay in touch, and which I'm sure we will. And so let me know if there's anything else that we can still help you with from a career standpoint. All right.
Yeah, for sure. So, thank you, Sam. Thanks for having me. I'm glad I was able to kind of just share my experiences, but hopefully, this can help anyone who's kind of thinking about joining the program. But yeah, take care.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you, guys. All right, guys, we'll be back with more of these for you guys in the near future. Okay. Talk soon. Bye.
Bye.